Rome, June 22nd, 1633. The great hall of the convent of Santa Maria, sopra Minerva. The air inside the chamber is stagnant, heavy with the smell of wet wool, burning tallow, and fear. Kneeling on the cold marble floor is an old man. He is 70 years old. His knees ache, his eyesight is failing, and his hands tremble as he grips a penitential candle. This is Galileo Galilei, the man who saw the face of God in the stars. But today, he is not a celebrity scientist. He is a criminal. Looming over him are the inquisitors of the Holy Office, their red robes glowing like blood in the dim light. They are not looking at the stars. They are looking at a single piece of parchment lying on the table before them. A document from 1616. A document that Galileo claims he has never seen before, but one that the Church says will seal his fate. For nearly 4 centuries, the Vatican kept the full details of this file locked away in the Archivum Secretum. Why? Because the paper on that table might have been a lie. For hundreds of years, the world believed this was a simple story of science versus religion, a war between the telescope and the Bible. But when the dust is blown off the archival boxes, a different story emerges. It is a story of political betrayal, a forged signature, and a judicial trap set decades before the trap snapped shut. The Vatican Archives, now known as the Apostolic Archives, hold 53 miles of shelving. Somewhere in those miles lay the truth about the trial of the millennium. To understand why this document was hidden, we must first understand the dangerous world that created it. Welcome to the investigation. The architect of the heavens. To understand the weight of that document in 1633, we must wind the clock back 23 years to a clear, freezing night in Padua. January 7th, 1610. The world is different here. It is a world of absolute certainty. For nearly 2,000 years, humanity has slept comfortably under the blanket of Aristotle and Ptolemy. The earth is the center of the universe, immovable, heavy, significant. Everything else, the sun, the moon, the stars, dances around us in perfect crystal spheres. This is not just science, it is theology. It is the architecture of God's house. To question it is to question the Creator himself. But on this night, a 45-year-old mathematics professor named Galileo Galilei does something forbidden. He points a modified spyglass, a Dutch invention intended for spotting ships, not at the horizon, but at the sky. Through his optical tube, which magnifies objects 20 times, the perfect heavens begin to crack. He looks at Jupiter. He expects to see a single point of light. Instead, he sees 3 small stars in a line next to the planet. The next night, they have moved. They are not stars, they are moons. This realization is not just a discovery, it is a demolition. If Jupiter has moons orbiting it, then not everything orbits the Earth. The crystal spheres shatter. In March 1610, Galileo publishes Sidereus Nuncius, the Starry Messenger. It is a short book, hardly more than a pamphlet, but it hits Europe with the force of a bomb. Within weeks, the unknown mathematician becomes the most famous man in Italy. Kings ask him to name stars after them. Poets write verses about his magic tube. He is hailed as the Columbus of the heavens, but in the shadows of the Vatican, The scribes are already sharpening their quills. Galileo is intoxicated by his own fame. He moves to Florence, securing a position as the court mathematician to the Grand Duke of Tuscany. He is brilliant, charismatic, and dangerously arrogant. He does not just want to prove the Earth moves around the sun, a theory proposed by the Polish canon Copernicus decades earlier. He wants to shout it. He writes letters. He mocks his opponents at dinner parties. He debates cardinals with a biting wit that leaves them humiliated. He forgets a crucial rule of survival in 17th century Italy. You can be right or you can be safe, but you rarely get to be both. The atmosphere in Rome is tense. The Protestant Reformation has torn the church in half. The Catholic Church is in a defensive crouch, terrified of any new idea that challenges the authority of Scripture. If the Bible says, Joshua commanded the sun to stand still, then the sun must move. If Galileo says the sun is stationary, then Galileo is calling the Bible a lie. This is the logic of the Counter-Reformation. It is a time when the smell of roasted flesh still lingers in the Campo dei Fiori, where Giordano Bruno was burned alive just a decade earlier for heresies that included speculating about infinite worlds. Galileo believes he is safe. He has friends in high places. He believes the church will embrace the truth if he just explains it clearly enough. He is wrong. In 1615, a Dominican friar named Niccolò Lorini files a secret complaint with the Inquisition. He sends them a copy of a letter Galileo wrote, claiming that Scripture should be interpreted metaphorically when it contradicts physical evidence. This is the spark. The Holy Office opens a file. The file is named Galileo Galilei, and the first document enters the archive. The Inquisition does not work in the daylight. It works in silence. They do not arrest Galileo immediately. Instead, they consult their theological experts. In February 1616, the qualifiers of the Holy Office deliver their verdict on the Copernican theory. Their judgment is brutal and absolute. The proposition that the sun is the center of the world is declared foolish and absurd in philosophy and formally heretical. The proposition that the earth moves is declared at least erroneous in faith. The hammer has fallen, but they do not want to make a martyr out of the famous Galileo. They decide to silence him quietly. This brings us to the most critical moment of the mystery, the moment that generates the hidden document. It is February 26, 1616. The location is the palace of Cardinal Robert Bellarmine. Bellarmine is the hammer of heretics, the brilliant intellectual who prosecuted Giordano Bruno. He is a man of terrifying intellect and absolute loyalty to the Pope. Pope Paul V has given Bellarmine a specific order: summon Galileo, admonish him to abandon his opinions, and if he refuses, only then issue a formal injunction before a notary and witnesses. Galileo enters the palace. The air is cold. He stands before the cardinal. Bellarmine, polite but firm, tells Galileo that the Copernican theory cannot be held or defended. Galileo, realizing the danger, acquiesces. He agrees. He promises to be silent. In his mind, this is a friendly warning between intellectuals. He leaves the meeting believing he is free to discuss the theory as a hypothesis, just not as absolute truth. He even asks Bellarmine for a certificate proving he was not forced to abjure or do penance. and Bellarmine writes him a friendly letter confirming this. But while Galileo walks away relieved, something else is happening in that room. Something suspicious. The official record of the meeting is written down by a notary. But this record, the document that will resurface 17 years later, contains a phrase that Bellarmine never mentioned in his letter. The document says Galileo was ordered to abandon the opinion completely, and not to hold, teach, or defend it in any way, verbally or in writing. Not to teach it in any way. These words are the trap. If this document is genuine, then Galileo is silenced completely. He cannot even discuss it as a hypothesis. But Galileo has Bellarmine's signed letter, which says something different. 2 documents, 2 versions of the truth. One goes into Galileo's pocket, the other goes into the secret files of the Inquisition, and there it sits, gathering dust, waiting for the moment to strike. For the next 7 years, Galileo stays quiet. He watches the stars from his villa. He nurses his rheumatism. He plays the lute. The storm seems to pass. In 1623, a miracle happens. Cardinal Maffeo Barberini is elected pope. He takes the name Urban VIII. Barberini is not a sour inquisitor. He is a poet, an intellectual, and most importantly, a personal friend of Galileo. He has written poems praising Galileo's discoveries. He loves the arts and sciences. Galileo is ecstatic. He travels to Rome to kiss the feet of the new pope. They walk together in the Vatican gardens. They talk for hours about natural philosophy. Pope Urban VIII gives Galileo a feeling of safety. He tells him, "The Church has not condemned Copernicus as heretical, only rash." He encourages Galileo to write, to publish, provided he treats the motion of the earth as a mathematical curiosity, not a reality. He even suggests the title for Galileo's next book. Galileo returns to Florence with a renewed fire. He believes the ban of 1616 has been lifted by the Pope's friendship. He begins to write his masterpiece, the dialogue concerning the 2 chief world systems. He pours everything he knows into it. It takes him years. It is a conversation between 3 characters: Salviati, the wise Copernican, Sagredo, the intelligent layman, and Simplicio, the Aristotelian simpleton. He writes with the confidence of a man who believes he is untouchable. He places the Pope's own arguments about God's omnipotence into the mouth of Simplicio. The simpleton. It is a literary miscalculation of catastrophic proportions. He does not see it as an insult. He sees it as including his friend's voice. But when the book is finally printed in 1632, the plague has cut off communication between Florence and Rome. The censors are confused. The book is released. And then, the silence breaks. The betrayal and the discovery. Rome, summer 1632. The reaction to the dialogue is not a ripple, it is a tsunami. The book has reached the Vatican, and Pope Urban VIII is no longer the friendly intellectual who walked in the gardens. He is a man consumed by rage. His advisors, enemies of Galileo, whom the scientist had mocked for years, whisper poison into the Pope's ear. They point to the character of Simplicio, the slow-witted fool who defends the old astronomy. They show the Pope the final page, where Simplicio gives the Pope's own argument about God's power. "See, Holiness," they whisper, Galileo has made you the fool of Christendom. The betrayal feels personal. The Pope bangs his fist on the table. He orders the book seized. He orders the printer halted. He orders a special commission to scour the Vatican archives to find a way to destroy Galileo legally. They need a weapon. They need proof that Galileo didn't just write a bad book, but that he disobeyed a direct order. They dig into the dust of the archives. They scroll through the records of 1616. And there, buried in the file labeled Galileo Galilei, they find it. It is a single sheet of paper. It is not a formal decree signed by a cardinal. It is not a court order signed by the Pope. It is an unsigned minute, a note taken by a notary during that meeting with Cardinal Bellarmine 17 years ago. This is the document we spoke of, the special injunction. It states clearly that Galileo was ordered to abandon the opinion completely, and not to hold, teach, or defend it in any way, verbally or in writing. The inquisitors stare at the text. This is the smoking gun. If this document is valid, Galileo has been lying for 17 years. He was told never to write about it, yet he just published a 500-page book on the subject. With this piece of paper, they don't need to prove the Earth is the center of the universe. They only need to prove Galileo is disobedient. But there is a problem. A shadow hangs over this document. It is unsigned. It has no witnesses listed who signed it. It appears to be a draft, or worse, a forgery inserted into the file by an overzealous official back in 1616 to cover his tracks. But in 1632, with the Pope demanding blood, nobody cares about legal niceties. The trap is set. In October 1632, the order goes out. Galileo must come to Rome. Galileo pleads for mercy. He is nearly 70. He is bedridden with arthritis and a hernia. The plague is ravaging Tuscany. Travel is a death sentence. He sends doctor's notes claiming he cannot survive the journey. The Pope's response is chilling. He can come slowly, in a litter, but he must come. If he does not, we will send soldiers to drag him here in chains. On January 20th, 1633, the old man climbs into a litter provided by the Grand Duke. The journey takes 3 agonizing weeks through plague-ridden Italy. He arrives in Rome not as a guest, but as a prisoner of the Inquisition. He is housed in the Tuscan embassy, waiting for the summons. He still believes he can talk his way out of it. He still believes he has the golden ticket, the letter from Cardinal Bellarmine, proving he was never formally silenced. He has no idea what they found in the archives. The interrogation. April 12, 1633, the first hearing. Galileo is brought before the Commissary General of the Inquisition, Father Vincenzo Maculano da Firenzuola. Maculano is a stern, efficient Dominican. He sits behind a high table. The scribe dips his quill. The interrogation begins. Maculano asks calmly, "Do you recall the events of 1616? What were you ordered to do?" Galileo answers confidently. He explains that Cardinal Bellarmine told him not to hold the theory as absolute truth, but that he could discuss it hypothetically. Maculano leans forward. The trap is about to spring. "Did anyone order you not to teach, defend, or discuss it in any way whatsoever?" Galileo hesitates. "I do not recall those words. I rely on the certificate given to me by Cardinal Bellarmine." Galileo pulls the letter from his robe. He hands it to the inquisitor. It is a moment of stunned silence. The inquisitors read Bellarmine's letter. It supports Galileo's story. It says nothing about a total ban on teaching or discussing. The prosecution is stunned. They have two documents. Exhibit A, the defense, a signed letter by a cardinal, now dead and a saint, saying Galileo was only warned. Exhibit B, the prosecution, an unsigned, messy note from the archives saying Galileo was totally silenced. In a modern court of law, the case would collapse. The signed letter trumps the unsigned note. But this is not a modern court. This is the Holy Office. The inquisitors cannot admit that their own archives might contain a lie or a mistake. They cannot admit that the Holy Office messed up in 1616. To do so would undermine the infallibility of the institution. So they change tactics. They do not charge him with heresy immediately. They charge him with deception. They claim he hid the existence of the injunction when he asked for permission to print his book. They claim he acted in bad faith. Galileo is confused. He is trapped in a room where reality is being rewritten by a piece of paper he swears he never heard. The psychological pressure begins. They keep him waiting. They hint at torture. They show him the instruments of the dungeon, not to use them, but to let his imagination do the work. This is the terition, the showing of the instruments. For a 70-year-old man, the threat is enough. The history books tell us the dates and the names, but they often miss the human cost of the truth. Imagine being 70 years old, facing the most powerful empire on earth, armed only with a memory that no longer matches the official record. History is full of these shadows, documents hidden, voices silenced, and truths buried under centuries of dust. If you want to join us as we unlock these archives every week, click the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Don't let history remain a mystery. Now, back to the trial. The Broken Man. By late April, Galileo is breaking. His health is deteriorating. The commissary, Maculano, realizes that the legal case is shaky because of Galileo's letter. He decides to try an extrajudicial solution. He visits Galileo in his cell, off the record. It is a good cop routine. Maculano tells Galileo, "Look, the Pope is furious. The trial could go on for months. You might die here. Why not just confess to? Vanity? Admit you went too far in the book. Admit you were arrogant. If you confess to a mistake, we can let you off with a light sentence. We can end this." Galileo, exhausted and terrified, takes the deal. On April 30th, he returns to the chamber. He confesses. He says his book was written with vain ambition and pure ignorance and inadvertence. He apologizes. He debases himself. He thinks this is the end. He thinks he will be scolded and sent home to Florence. He is wrong. The Pope wants total victory. The confession is not enough. The cardinals debate the sentence. Some want him to suffer, others want leniency. But the final decision comes down from Urban V8. There will be no mercy. The day of judgment, June 22nd, 1633. The scene returns to the cinematic hook. The convent of Santa Maria sopra Minerva. The Great Hall. Galileo is dressed in the white shirt of a penitent. He kneels before the cardinals. The sentence is read aloud. It is far worse than Maculano promised. First, he is found vehemently suspect of heresy. Second, the book dialogue is banned. Third, he is condemned to formal imprisonment at the pleasure of the Holy Office. Fourth, he must recite the 7 penitential psalms once a week for 3 years. But the final humiliation is yet to come. He must abjure, curse, and detest his life's work. Galileo places his hand on the Bible. His voice shakes. He reads the prepared statement. I, Galileo Galilei, swear that I have always believed, do now believe, and by God's help will for the future believe, all that is held, preached, and taught by the Holy Catholic and Apostolic Roman Church. He denies the motion of the earth. He denies the sun is the center. He denies his own eyes. Legend says that as he stood up from his knees, he muttered under his breath, "Eppur si muove," and yet it moves. But historians doubt this happened. To say that in this room would have been suicide. In reality, he likely stood up in silence. Broken, defeated. The trial is over. The document from the archive has done its job. Galileo is escorted away, not to a dungeon, but to house arrest where he will remain until his death. But the Vatican does not just lock away Galileo. They lock away the documents. They take the file, including the dubious 1616 injunction and the transcript of the trial, and place it in the deepest part of the secret archives. They know that the legal footing of the trial was shaky. They know that if the world saw how they manipulated the evidence, the Church's authority would be questioned. So, they hide it. For the next 200 years, scholars begged to see the trial documents. Napoleon Bonaparte, when he conquers Rome in 1810, steals the entire Vatican archive and hauls it to Paris, desperate to publish the Galileo file to embarrass the Pope. But even then, parts of it go missing. It isn't until the late 19th century that the file is fully returned and slowly, grudgingly, opened to the light. Why did they hide it for so long? Because the file proves something more damaging than scientific ignorance. It proves a judicial murder. The prisoner of Archetri. The trial ends, but the punishment does not. Galileo is not executed. He is not thrown into a dungeon. Instead, he is erased. He is exiled to his villa at Arcetri, in the hills above Florence. It is a beautiful cage. He can hear the bells of the convent where his daughters live, but he is forbidden to leave. He is forbidden to teach. He is forbidden to speak to the many scholars who wish to visit him. The Holy Office places him under indefinite house arrest. Guards are stationed. Spies read his mail. The most famous mind in Europe has been put in a box. But the tragedy deepens. In 1634, his beloved daughter, Sister Maria Celeste, dies. She was his anchor, the one person who gave him strength. Galileo is crushed. He sinks into a deep depression. And then, the darkness becomes literal. By 1638, the eyes that first saw the rings of Saturn and the moons of Jupiter begin to fail. Glaucoma sets in. Within months, Galileo Galilei is totally blind. The irony is cruel. The man who opened the eyes of humanity to the universe is now trapped in a world of shrinking borders. First, the earth, then his house, and finally, the darkness of his own mind. He writes to a friend, "This heaven, this earth, this universe, which I had enlarged 100,000 times, is now shrunk for me into the narrow space which I myself occupy. And yet, he does not stop. In the dark, he dictates. He returns to the physics of moving bodies, work he started in his youth. He dictates a new book, discourses and mathematical demonstrations relating to two new sciences. This is the foundation of modern mechanics. It is the book that will inspire Isaac Newton. But he cannot publish it. The Inquisition has banned all his works, past and future. So the manuscript is smuggled out of Italy, hidden in a diplomat's luggage, and printed in the Protestant Netherlands. Even in blindness, Galileo outmaneuvers the censors. On January 8, 1642, Galileo dies. He is 77 years old. The Vatican refuses to let him be buried in the family tomb. They fear his grave will become a shrine to heresy. He is buried in a small, obscure room off a hallway in the Basilica of Santa Croce. No monument, no inscription, just a hidden grave for a hidden truth. The Missing File, a detective story. Galileo is dead, but the file labeled Galileo Galilei is very much alive. This is where the story shifts from a tragedy to a political thriller. For nearly 2 centuries, the Vatican guards the trial documents like a nuclear secret. They know that the special injunction of 1616, the unsigned paper that convicted him, is suspicious. If the world sees it, they will ask questions. But in 1810, the walls are breached, not by a scientist, but by an emperor. Napoleon Bonaparte conquers Rome. He has a vision of a central archive of the world in Paris. He orders the entire Vatican secret archives, millions of documents, to be loaded onto wagons and hauled to France. It is the greatest theft of information in history. The wagons rumble over the Alps. Some overturn in rivers. Documents are lost in the mud. But the Galileo file survives. Napoleon wants to publish it. He wants to print the trial transcripts in French and distribute them across Europe to prove the tyranny of the Church. He hands the file to his scholars. But before they can publish, Napoleon falls. Waterloo happens. The empire collapses. The Vatican demands their archives back. The return journey is chaotic. The papal agents are desperate to get the files back to Rome before anyone reads them. But the Galileo file vanishes. For decades, it is presumed lost. Rumors swirl that it was burned. Others say a French official stole it. It isn't until 1843 that the file mysteriously reappears in the Vatican, returned by a French diplomat's widow. But when the Vatican librarians open it, they find something disturbing. The file has been tampered with. The binding is loose. Pages are renumbered. Did the French alter it? Did the Vatican remove incriminating evidence before the French got it? To this day, scholars argue about the physical state of the file. It bears the scars of a 400-year-old war over the truth. It takes another century for the smoke to clear. In the late 19th century, the Vatican finally allows limited access. In 1992, Pope John Paul II formally closes the investigation, admitting the Church made a tragic error, but he focuses on the theology, on the misunderstanding of Scripture. He does not dwell on the legal trickery. He does not mention the unsigned injunction that trapped a sick old man. So, what is the verdict on the hidden document? Modern historians and forensic experts have analyzed the ink and the handwriting of that 1616 note. The consensus is terrifyingly simple. It was likely not a forgery in the sense of a fake document created later. It was a false record created at the time. An ambitious notary, perhaps trying to please the aggressive Cardinal Bellarmine, wrote down a stricter version of events than what actually happened. He filed it away, unsigned. It was a bureaucratic landmine. When the Inquisitors found it in 1633, they had a choice. They could have asked, "Why is this unsigned? Why does it contradict Bellarmine's letter?" But they didn't. They chose to use the weapon they found. They chose the comfortable lie over the difficult truth. Today, if you visit the Basilica of Santa Croce in Florence, you will not find Galileo in a hallway. In 1737, 95 years after his death, his body was moved. He now lies in a magnificent monumental tomb, directly across from Michelangelo. The man who saw the heavens is buried opposite the man who painted them. But the true monument is not in marble. It is in the mindset of the modern world. The trial of Galileo taught humanity a painful lesson. Authority cannot dictate reality. A decree can silence a man. It can burn a book. It can lock a document in a vault for 400 years. But it cannot stop the earth from turning. The document in the Vatican archives is no longer a weapon. It is a fossil. A reminder of a time when we tried to put the universe in chains. The ink has faded. The paper is brittle. But the truth remains as bright as the moons of Jupiter on a winter night. History is full of shadows. But if you look closely enough, even the darkest archives eventually let in the light. To explore more lost history, classified secrets, and the mysteries of the archives, make sure you are subscribed to Annalist. Turn on notifications so you never miss a revelation. Until next time, keep questioning the narrative.